One of the most common questions that I get is related to one of the most common search queries when it comes to stuff related to men's style, and that is, Tanner, why don't you talk more about dressing in ways that are attractive to women? Those of you guys who have been following me for a long time will know that that is a very glaring omission on my part, and the reality is it's on purpose. The short answer is because I think that it's an irrelevant question, and the long answer, well, let's dive into the long answer. This started out as one video, and as I filmed this, it very quickly became something that needed to be a series. And so today is part one in helping you understand why I don't talk about attracting women through clothing. There's a lot to unpack here, and so we're gonna take our time with this. I'm gonna do my best to explain a lot of these concepts, and as I do, I know that some of you guys are already going to be at the point where you're going to be frustrated because I'm painting in such broad strokes, or because what I'm talking about isn't going to line up with the politically correct world that we live in. So consider this your trigger warning, all right? None of this is peer reviewed, and if that's the kind of stuff that you need in order to gain value from what I'm talking about, you probably don't belong on this channel anyway. So all those disclaimers aside, let's start talking about what actually makes men attractive to women and how clothing comes into that equation. Now, in order to do that, the first thing that we need to do is we need to be able to understand that when it comes to the relationship between men and women, there are two different primary things that we are trying to signal to each other. The first one is attractiveness. The second is comfort. Now, let's break those down, and I'll give you some characteristics of both of those. Things that constitute attractiveness, at least in regards to men attracting women, are things like charisma, physical attractiveness, dominance, power, and most of all, status. Now, when it comes to building comfort, the majority of things that are needed to build comfort actually work across both sexes, but the things that are necessary for men to build comfort with women are things like kindness, generosity, provision, nurturance, and loyalty. Now, if you think about it, in order to have a successful relationship with somebody, you have to have both attraction and comfort. We see plenty of examples where it's only one-sided. Take, for example, what happens when all you have is attraction. These are the type of men who typically they're only looking out for number one. They're usually surrounded by a harem of attractive women, but they usually cycle through those women very, very quickly. There's no such thing as stability. There's no long-term aspect of it. There's a lot of drama, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of contention in relationships where the only thing that the man brings to the table is attraction. Now, pair that against the other side, where if the only thing a man brings to the table is comfort, then he's a loser nice guy, where he ends up being a doormat and not being walked all over just by women, but by other men as well. He's the one who's in the perpetual friend zone. He's always the best friend, but never actually makes anything happen with his own dating. He's the guy who is so sexually frustrated and he doesn't understand why being nice doesn't get him the girl. Now, both of these are extremes, and not all of us fall to either all attraction or all comfort. We have balances of both, but in order to truly have a successful relationship with a woman, you need to be able to have as much of both as you can possibly get. Healthy long-term relationships that last a long time and even get better with time have the right balance of both attraction and comfort. All attraction with no comfort, that's great for hedonists. It's great for guys who all they're looking for is one-night stands because they're not pursuing anything more, so all the liabilities that come without offering any comfort, they're not liabilities, they're assets. It's a way to pump and dump and move on. And all comfort with no attraction, well, the best case scenario that you can get with that is that you do find somebody to be in a relationship with, but that relationship ends up being more that you're like roommates than that you're actually in a committed, loving, attraction-building, sex-filled, great relationship with the person.
He's a never nude.
Is that exactly what it sounds like?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I need to be completely undressed.
I am completely undressed.
Okay, so once we understand that there's a distinction there, that you need to be able to focus on both, we can zero in a little bit more on attraction and what's required to build attraction. And the reality with that is that the most attractive thing that a man can have is not his looks, it's not his money, it's not anything except his status. Now, yes, looks, money, power, all of this, that is very much a component of status, but status is the main overarching attractor that drives the most benefit for the most men. Just to give a little bit of context, while the biggest thing that makes men attractive is status, the biggest thing that makes women attractive is beauty. And remember that, because we're going to tune in on that as we dive a little bit deeper into this whole concept. Not only is status something that is the biggest deal, but it's also something that is both relative and objective. Relative in the sense that it depends on, yes, your tribe and where you fall within it as far as your vertical status within the hierarchy, whether that's soft or hard, but then also relative in regards to where your status is in relationship to the woman that you're dating or you're interested in and you're married to. Women are attracted to men who are higher status than they are. Period. It's the way it works. If you want to attract a woman who is attractive, you have to be higher status than she is. If you don't have high enough status, then you need to either settle for somebody who's not as attractive as you think that you deserve, or you need to raise your relative status to what hers is in order to become attractive to her. Because the only way to have a happy, long-lasting relationship is if you're attracted to her and she's attracted to you. But again, status is tricky because it can be something objective, or at least objective when it comes to culture or humankind in general, but then it's also something that can be very relative, and it can be multiplied or diminished depending on the culture or the subculture that we belong to and we're part of. In fact, the more isolated a particular subculture is, then the more its own relative status matters compared to overall general status. Think about Comic-Con conventions and video game stuff. Think about chess clubs. There are attractive women who are attracted to men within those subcultures. And the reason that those men are attractive is because those cultures are so insulated that the status within those subcultures of those men who are high up in the hierarchy overrides their relative low status compared to the world in general. Now, obviously, one of the things that we want to do in order to attract people, not only attract potential mates, but in order to feel good about ourselves, in order to make sure that we're good within our position within the hierarchy. One, because men compete with other men in the tribe, and two, because we want to know and signal that we are fit to be members within the tribe, is we signal our status. And anybody who tells you that they don't signal status or that they don't care about it is actually just using their ambivalence towards status as a status signal. The problem with signaling status when it's not there, when you're going above and beyond what you actually have to offer, is it's a lie, and eventually you get found out. That's the problem with most of the pickup artist industry. That's the problem with most of the guys who teach game and other things like that, is all they're really doing is getting guys to be better at signaling non-existent status. Now again, if all you're after is one night stands and quick lays, then that's an effective tool, because by the time you've left her, then she doesn't know any better and she thinks that she's been with some alpha top dog guy when really it's just some guy who's really good at pretending. But if you want more than that, not just within relationships with women, but with relationships with the world in general, then over signaling your status or making your clothing, your presence tell a lie about where you actually fit is a huge liability, and it ends up costing you more than if you just accurately signaled where you actually fall within the hierarchies of your different tribes. And that's why when you get to any culture or any subculture or any point in history, there are always some minimal standards of status or attractiveness for men, just like there always are for women. In fact, meeting those minimum standards they're minimum for a reason. In order to really be able to succeed within a group, you have to meet its minimum standards. Think about a football team. In order to actually stay within the football team, you have to meet the minimum standards to make the cut. And if you don't make the cut, you're off the team. The same goes for society in general. When it comes to things like beauty or power or dominance or status or kindness or nurturing or anything else, you have to meet minimum standards, otherwise society rejects you. We may do that softly by just not wanting to engage with you, or we may do that in a very hard and outlined way, like throwing you into prison or having you executed. If you don't meet the minimum standards of a general society, then you're expelled from that society, which is obviously about as low status as it gets. And meeting these minimum standards is why the happiest couples are usually those that are paired fairly closely, where yes, your status as a man is a little bit higher than the status of the woman that you're with, but not exceedingly so. The relationships that don't work are often because the man is lower status than the woman. Think of like really, really clingy relationships, guys who never get over a girlfriend, they're super jealous, they know that they've dated out of their league. That's not attractive for women at all. They don't want anything to do with that. Or because the man is so much higher in status that it creates dissonance. It creates fear and dread in her where she can't actually be herself. She can't support him. She can't be comfortable and content in the relationship. And he is always feeling like he could have done better and he should have done better. You know, yes, all of that can be balanced out and mitigated, one, by how many of those comfort building traits you have, and two, by moral and societal codes. That's why marriage exists, so that people don't just bounce back and forth, where men don't leave women, the mothers of their children, for more attractive women as their relative status rises, or as their wife's relative beauty decreases, nor is it that women leave their husbands because their status doesn't rise or it isn't what it used to be. Marriage and social contracts like that existed to protect us from our own kind of animalistic, natural tendencies to always seek beauty or status and just drive for those things. All right, so we're gonna end part one there. I know that there's a lot to handle. In part two, we're gonna talk about how this actually ties into your style, and also where status comes from, who it comes from, and why trying to attain status through attracting women is missing the mark a little bit. So, can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. I can't wait to share with you guys part two, which is coming up on the next video, and I will talk to you guys then.